everyone. It's Eric from Garden Fork Radio. Today we have a special guest. We have Priscilla, my neighbor down the road. We also know her as the Egg Lady. Priscilla has a little farm stand outside her house at the end of her driveway where she's got eggs and flowers. And right now there's peaches out there and cucumbers and squash. And she wanted to come back on Garden Fork Radio and talk about tomato pests, specifically the tomato hornworm. And we kind of digressed into a bunch of other stuff as usual on Garden Fork Radio. So I just wanted to roll into the interview here or the talk and see what you guys think. All right?
I did a blindfolded test of tomato
A blind taste test. We could totally do that.
Wouldn't it be fun?
I'd love it.
I would too.
The only problem is my tomatoes really aren't growing except for the Juliets. Are these Juliets here?
Yeah.
Yeah. Those are the only thing I have.
Juliet. Now, Juliet was the one that there was a crop failure for seeds, and
Right.
we couldn't get the seeds anywhere, and we finally found a place in North Carolina that had them.
For like $5 a packet or something?
Well, no, the seeds weren't that expensive. It was the shipping.
Yeah.
For one little packet of seeds. And then I wanted Juliet so much I overdid it. Now I have too many Juliets. So.
But we could save the seed from some of those tomatoes.
Right. Well, if they were hybrid, you might not get the same thing back.
Right. Is the Juliet a hybrid or an heirloom?
It is a hybrid.
Oh.
Developed by Johnny's of Albion, Maine, and they were the All-America winner in 1992.
They're an employee-owned company now. You know, Johnny's Seeds, the Johnny fellow who started the company?
Yeah.
He sold the company to his employees.
Oh, that's wonderful.
I love that.
You can go and visit that spot, too. I'm not exactly sure where Albion, Maine is, but I thought it would be fun to visit. In the catalog, they invite you to come visit.
Didn't they also invent the rainbow Swiss chard?
They may have. I'm not sure who did. I'll have to check that out and look it up. So, well, Jane and I found a horned tobacco worm, which is the larvae of the sphinx moth, the caterpillar stage. A big one on one of our plants in the front garden.
Right.
And so she took a picture. That's what she's downloading. I was going to take you up there to see it because it was a perfect specimen for,
They're huge.
photographing. This was a big one. But if you watch them, if they have the little white eggs all over their back from the trachinid fly, they aren't eating. They're sick. They have a headache or something, and they're just sitting there.
Yeah, they don't move, basically.
And that's why we just leave them on the plant to make another generation of trachinid flies, because when those eggs hatch, the larvae feed on the flesh of the worm, and it's going to die. So that creature is not going to hurt your tomato plant.
So once they have all those white eggs on the back of the
I
bug,
wouldn't worry about them. If you observe the ones that are not infected, they're chewing so loud you can almost hear them chew. And if you look at one of the ones that's infected, it's sitting there, and you watch it, each day it gets smaller and smaller, and then it's gone.
Wow.
So
we should back up. We should get a little backstory on what we've been doing here.
we should.
So we've been, Priscilla and I, we see each other almost every weekend.
Correct.
And we usually go through your garden, and you kind of had this influx of, is it called the tomato hornworm?
Well, when I looked in the internet, they called it the horned tobacco worm, because tomatoes and tobacco are all in the same family, and potatoes and deadly nightshade and so on.
Right. So, and then you ran across a couple that had been what's called parasitized, which is they're usually the more mature tomato hornworms, which will just eat apart a tomato plant in a day, it seems.
Oh, it does. It does. It's awful what happened to mine.
And then you can tell, then you run across these hornworms, which are really hard to see because they're green. They're the same color as the plant.
They're very hard to see.
They're camouflaged.
Yes.
But they have these white eggs sticking across. It looks like they have a spine, an external spine, or almost like a mohawk of white eggs.
And those are easy to spot.
Yeah, that you
Those
can
are-
find.
yeah.
And those tomato hornworms, we don't want to kill. We want to just leave them there. Because that little, is it a wasp or a fly?
I think it's the tachinid.
Yeah.
Tachinid fly.
And so this fly has laid its eggs across the back of the caterpillar, and those eggs are going to hatch, and the larvae are going to feed on the caterpillar. The caterpillar is going to die. So we don't want to kill those caterpillars with the eggs on them.
Right, we want another generation of tachinid flies. Apparently are helpful for some other garden pests too.
Oh.
I was reading in this little article I had.
You did your research?
Yeah, I tried to. So we're really getting very interested in the bugs that are causing us no end of trouble in the garden and wondering what we can do to get rid of them without pesticides.
Well, I have a question for you. Since we've noticed these tomato hornworms, have you noticed a decline in the population of them?
Oh yes, and the chickens and the turkey are crazy about them. And so one day I picked off about 20 or 25, and yesterday I didn't find any. The number diminished each day. And so the chickens and the turkey were a little disappointed, but
yeah.
I filled them with them.
Can you let the chickens run in your tomato planting area to pick them off? Or?
No, because I noticed that they tend to be rather high up on the plant. And also,
yeah.
Right, so they would pick them off if they could reach them. And the second thing is, if the chickens go in the tomatoes, they take a bite out of a tomato here and there. And that's not a good thing at all, and that's been a problem. So I think the best thing is to pick them off and just once a day. It seems like early in the morning is the easiest time to spot them. Walk through the tomato patch and pick them off and get rid of them. Unless they're parasitized, leave those, because those aren't going to eat much of the tomato leaf anyway.
No. It's really raining outside, everybody, so what you're hearing is the rain outside.
Yes, it's coming down in buckets. We did need rain, but not as hard.
No.
So, but if we back up a little, I know we're past the beginning of the growing season, but it's good to think ahead for next year too, how we could avoid some of these real problem garden pests.
Yeah.
And the one thing over the years, one thing I've started doing is I'm starting seeds in containers on the kitchen windowsill or in the hoop house instead of starting them in the ground.
All right.
Okay? So cucumbers. The first couple leaves that come up, the cotyledonous leaves, are easily devoured overnight by striped or spotted cucumber beetles. If you start them in a container in the house, they don't have access to them.
Right, the beetles can't get to them inside your house.
Right, we hope.
Yeah.
And then when they get their first permanent leaves, I transplant them out to the hill in the garden. And then I put a row cover of Rime over the hill.
Which is like this white spun,
filmy, yeah, kind of gauzy stuff.
right? Which allows air and water in,
Yes.
but keeps the bugs out.
And pretty much light in too.
Yeah.
And I make little hoops for them to go over out of various things that I find around. I mean, you could take
Coat hanger wire.
you
probably.
could coat hanger and hitch it together, and the good thing is you can reuse those year after year. So the remake's really expensive, but if you take it and fold it up and put it away, you can use it again the next year.
Yeah.
And I found that I make a cross of a hoop, put the remake over the hill, cut it to the right size, and then after experimenting, I found the best thing to do to hold it in place is a shovel full of dirt around at several places, because then you could just pull it off without, if you use rocks, you have to take them away, and if you use metal stakes you can buy to stick them in or make, then you might forget one and it gets caught in the rototiller. So my solution now is to put a shovel full of dirt to hold it in place.
That works. We're always trying to get rid of rocks anyway.
It worked, yeah. Well, the rock, I know, I didn't want to have to take them out of the garden twice.
Yeah.
So it worked really well. It worked really well. Also, it prevented the wild turkeys from taking dust baths in the hills until the plants got bigger, because that was a problem one year too.
Oh, wow.
It was a nice soft dirt, looked like a little
yeah.
soft bed to take a dust bath in. You have to take the rime off when these plants, the cucumbers, squash, pumpkins, start to bloom, because they need to be pollinated.
Yep.
By then, they're big enough to fend for themselves.
Against the cucumber beetle.
Yes.
But then we move into the next problem, which you've had, which is the squash vine borer.
Yes.
Which really likes squash plants.
Yes. I read in the New Hampshire Market Bulletin that we get that was a big outbreak of them in New Hampshire, and I was saying, wow, I haven't seen any here. But I remember as a kid, growing up in New Hampshire, they were a problem, and we would slit the squash stem open, starting at the place where the borer went in, which is right at ground level, and you'll see little
Like orange sawdust there.
yes, thank you. I couldn't think of the word sawdust. A little orange sawdust. Start there, slit it open lengthwise up to where you find the borer, and there can be more than one, and get the little beast out of there, and then pack some damp dirt over the stem.
Where you did the cut.
Where you did the cut, to cover it over and seal it up. And usually that works.
Huh.
So, sure enough, a few days ago, my neighbor Jane's told me all her zucchini and summer squash were wilting and dying, and she didn't know why. And I went up, and sure enough, squash vine borers in every single one.
Wow.
So,
where does the squash vine borer come from?
well, it's a beetle that looks something like a wasp. It's black and it has orange spots, and it's fairly large, and it comes around in June and the first part of July, and it lays its eggs, I think, in the soil. Then the borer comes out and gets into the vine, right there at the level where the stem meets the soil. The other thing is to take all your squash vines at the end of the season and either compost them in hot compost, burn them, get rid of them, so you're not carrying things over for the following year. The good thing is they only have one cycle a year.
They only lay eggs once a year.
They only do it once a year, unlike some of the other ones that do it several times. So once you get past that first part of July, you could replant a second crop of squash and pumpkins and not have that problem. And you'd still probably have enough growing season to
get some fruit out of there.
Right. So Jane and I actually did that. We put in a couple hills of zucchini and summer squash. It's not a bad idea anyway, because sometimes they kind of burn out and you need a second crop. And the ones I operated on, and one of them I found 3 borers in the stem. So I have to look pretty carefully. They were the small ones.
And you have a nursing background.
So. Yeah, well, I guess so. It sounds like it. They didn't look good, and Jane said they were all dead. And I went up a couple days later, and they had all stopped wilting and revived and growing, and we're starting to make squash again.
Cool.
So it worked. It worked.
So do you just use a really sharp blade of some sort?
You do need a small sharp knife, because you don't want to sever the entire stem. You just want to make a slit.
You kind of slit up along the length of the stem till you find the grub, or there might be more than one.
Yes, and it's a small white grub. We tried to take pictures so maybe people could see them with little black eyes. Pretty hard. It's easy to see.
Once you got it open
Once you find them.
Yeah.
And a couple of them had gone up the stem a little high. It was hard to reach. And so I took my little pointed knife and sort of went up there and turned it back and forth. And apparently this frightened them. And they started coming back down and wanting to get out of the stem as fast as possible. And then I was able to get them and get rid of them. So you might want to try that trick. That worked out really well. So that was a problem. The cucumber beetles. One article about cucumber beetles suggested that you plant something they really love at the edge of your garden, such as the tomatillos, which self-seed. You always end up with them all over the place. Put them at the edge of the garden, then the cucumber beetles will go over there and eat those leaves in preference to anything else. And then you could spray those with a pesticide, presumably, and kill them all.
Yeah, like pyrethrum or something organic like that.
Exact. You could do that, and that that would get rid of them and get them away from your cucumbers.
So it's like an attractant plant that you stick somewhere else in the garden.
It is an attractant plant. Mm-hmm.
You know what, I tried, I had all these Japanese beetles, and so I got one of those Japanese beetle traps, and I stuck it, like 100 feet away from the garden, and I found that all it did was just attract more Japanese beetles to the garden.
A lot of people have said that, and you want to put it, you end up with all your neighbors' Japanese beetles too.
Yeah.
So we have guinea hens. They love Japanese beetles and turkeys, and they'll run around and eat them off.
Nice.
We don't really have a problem with them. The larvae of the Japanese beetles eats the roots of grass, your lawn, and other plants. And if you notice like big dead patches in your lawn that don't look good, and you take a shovel and dig down, you'll probably find a whole bunch of Japanese beetle grubs, and then you'll have to try to do something about that to stop them. What happens with us is the guinea hens, I think they hear them. Somehow they know they're there, and they'll scratch them up and eat every single one out.
Wow.
So a neighbor across the street a number of years ago called and said that my guinea hens were ruining her lawn because they were digging it up, and it was making her blood pressure go up. So I told her I was sorry, and I came over and I took a shovel, and I took a shovelful. It was just crawling with these Japanese beetles, and I showed her that the lawn was dying because of the beetles, and it's true, the guinea hens were digging it up. And they were really polishing off those beetles fast. So then I put some grass seed down and reseeded the areas they had dug up, and that was the end of the problem. That was good.
Cool.
It was.
Hi, Eric.
I'm Eric.
This is Jane.
Jane's come join us.
And so we talked about Japanese beetles. I mean, you can.
Well, you have a whole list here.
Well, I made a list of the ones that have caused us the most trouble. Colorado potato beetles are a big problem.
Yeah, I don't have them this year. I don't know why.
That's good.
Yeah.
Did you have them last year?
I skipped a year, so I didn't plant potatoes last year.
That's why you don't have them this year, probably. What we do, and not everybody would have this option, is we fool them because we rotate our potato crop because we have 3 gardens and they're far apart. So we put potatoes in one garden one year, squash in the other garden,
right.
And then we flip-flop that, and we confuse them, and they don't know where the potatoes have gone. And we used to have a big problem with potato beetles. And the thing is, apparently they don't taste good, so most birds and so on, even though they're easy to spot, don't eat them.
Oh,
they're
all right.
really nasty, the adults.
Yeah. Kind of like the monarch butterfly caterpillar.
Exactly,
It tastes really bad.
Exactly. So, they're a problem, and I think that not planting your potatoes in the same place twice is very important.
If you can move them as far away as possible.
Exactly. And then get rid of any debris at the end of the year. You really have to clean the garden up, no matter what it is, and get rid of it. And so that reminds me of the European corn borers, which I don't know how many people plant corn in the garden, but some people do, and we do. We haven't had a big problem with it, but they do winter over in those dead corn stalks. So once again, you want to get rid of the corn stalks at the end of the year.
Huh. Can you mulch them and put them in somewhere else in the yard?
They said hot compost.
So,
in other words,
yeah.
if it's just a pile of stuff that's gradually decaying, it's not going to heat up really hot.
Right enough, heat enough to kill it.
It won't get rid of them. It won't be hot enough to kill them.
And hot composting is hard to attain in a home garden.
It is very hard to obtain. So that, that's. But for some reason, we don't have corn borers in our corn, and I think it's because we have a lot of critters around here that are eating them. The taconid fly, I think, will parasitize them.
Oh, neat.
So I just read a really interesting article in Hobby Magazine that suggests...
this is called Hobby Farms Magazine.
Yeah, Hobby Farms. Someone gave it to me. And it suggests planting plants that beneficial insects are attracted to. And those beneficial insects, there's quite a number of them, then can help get rid of your garden pests. And at different life stages, the adult and the larvae. And most of them need nectar, the adults, they need food. And they get the most nectar from compound flowers, such as sunflowers are one, Queen Anne's lace.
I have a lot of Queen Anne's lace.
Dill. So when you
basically flowers that have a ton of little
composite flower.
They have a bunch of little they're called pistils or stamens or whatever. All together.
Right. And it's very easy for them to get the nectar from those flowers, and some of them, the larvae might feed on the leaves of those plants.
Yeah.
So it suggests planting these attractant plants for the beneficial insects, and then those beneficial insects will help get rid of your garden pests.
We have the Queen Anne's lace just seeds
Big
everywhere in the yard.
This year. Mm-hmm.
And when it grows in the yard, when I'm mowing the yard, I just drive around it. Why push around it?
Good. It's pretty.
Yeah, it's just beautiful.
The seeds, when the flower goes by and they have the seeds, those are edible, and you can make a nice dip out of them. They're in the carrot family, like dill.
Yeah.
And you can harvest the seeds and mix it with some sour cream and yogurt and make a nice party dip.
Yum.
With the seeds, or use them in seasoning. So that's another thing, to plant attractant plants that will bring in the beneficial insects that will help get rid of, we don't really see what they're doing all the time.
Yeah.
So ladybugs, I forget how much it said, how many aphids, I didn't mention aphids, but how many aphids, lacewings and ladybugs. Lacewings will eat, like 100 aphids a day or something, and ladybugs 500. So, yeah, lacewings eat up to 100 aphids a day, which can cause a lot of trouble because they, suck the juice out of things. So they talked about what to plant: alyssum, cosmos, dill, balm, thyme, statice, yarrow, zinnias too. Things like damsel bugs that are near the ground that stay close to the surface. Try low plants like candy tuft, dianthus, thyme, clover, and alfalfa. And I don't think we really think about that too much.
Yeah.
But it also is providing nectar for the bee population. And I think your honeybees are spending a lot of time in my garden.
Yeah, probably. I have a bee problem actually. I'll show you a picture. We just put new queens in all the hives.
I was telling Jane about it.
And one of the queens has failed.
The one that was kind of...
Oh, it's the parrot.
The one that was kind of weak?
Yeah, the one that I thought was going to be weak did not take in the hive, and so the bees have...
Now what are they going to do?
They've started a queen cell. So at the bottom of the frame there, see that thing that looks like a peanut shell?
Yeah.
They're raising their own queen.
They'll have a new queen. Wow. Well, I wonder if that queen will be a good disease resistant. Oh, look, it's bigger than the others. Wow.
Yeah, so it sticks out from the frame.
Yes, it does.
And comes down. So
yeah.
But I don't want this queen.
Because you want a disease resistant queen.
Right, I want
hold them over for a while.
Yeah. The thing is, though, is basically this queen is going to hatch, and it won't be marked. So, and to find a queen amongst thousands of bees can be really hard. Just ask my friend Rick, who took him 3 times. If you're looking for a queen in your hive, always bring a friend or 2.
Yeah.
But the thing is, now I'm debating, should I take a day off this week and go buy a queen from one of the local breeders, and then we'll open up the hive and cut out. There's more than one queen cell in the hive, so cut all the queen cells out, put in a queen, and then they're like, oh, life is good, the queen is back.
Yeah, she hatched.
So, but it's just because I got to take a day off of work, because I don't think I can wait till next weekend, because these queens may hatch.
Do you know how many days that takes for the queen to hatch?
I have to look it up. I can't remember if it's 21 days. I mean, I know the day we put in the new queen.
Yes.
And it's likely within because sometimes when you put a new queen in a hive, the bees don't like it and they'll kill the queen.
Do you think they might have killed her?
They might have killed it,
She
or
wasn't too healthy.
if she was weak,
and they knew she was weak.
then they'll ball her. They'll kill her.
Okay.
So that's my dilemma now, is trying to figure that out.
Where do you have to go for the queen?
Down in Brewster, either Brewster or up in Deerfield, Mass.
Brewster,
New York. So it's like an hour and change either way. But what's really cool is I got some survivor queens from this fella in Brewster, which look like mongrels. They're kind of black.
Right, and they're marked.
Yeah, but they have their body markings are much different than the yellow honeybees you're used to seeing.
So you can spot them.
They're kind of almost black. Mm-hmm. And then I got this other Italian survivor queen from this fella up in Deerfield, Mass, and the bees are almost pink looking.
Oh, really?
Which is really cool. So they're like different dogs, like Labradors look like this and Pit Bulls look like this. Right. So they're all dogs.
Who'd think?
But they all have different colorings. So like Pit Bulls kind of have that brindled look to them. That's what the bees are starting to look like.
Oh, interesting.
So that's very cool.
That is.
So my bees have been in your yard, and the bees is that a mile over to Bill's farm over there?
See,
where the bees are?
As the bee flies.
Yeah. It's not far.
It probably is about a mile because it would be crosswise. It wouldn't be going down the road. And it's somebody's bees, and I don't know anyone else who has honeybees unless they're wild ones.
Yeah.
But for instance, sunflowers are in full bloom now. And there will be 6 or 8 honeybees. If it weren't pouring out, I could show you.
Yeah.
And I had to put a sign in the farm stand for the flowers. Watch out for the bees. They love our flowers. Because I'm afraid someone will get bee stung. That and the globe thistle. They love the globe thistle.
Oh, I see that right outside the window
all over
here.
the place. And when I look, I'm seeing, and the raspberries are in bloom now for the fall crop.
Yeah.
I'm out there, I can hear the buzzing. It's just filled with bumblebees and honeybees pollinating them right up until dark.
Because the bees will travel, 3 to 5 miles, they say, to go get food.
I think it's very likely, I wish we knew for sure, we need a little homing device on one.
Well, we'll go out and look on another day where it's clear. If we see the pink ones, because I've never seen bees this kind of weird pinky yellow color that's in the one hive. With this new queen.
I didn't watch, of course, because I didn't know. I was just, they looked like just regular bees. I wasn't being really careful. But now I'm going to look much more carefully.
And they're also up at, Wendy's Bakery up the road there, up toward the reservoir.
She's seen them up there?
I see them when I stop by there. I see them in her yard.
Oh, really?
Wow. So that's very cool.
There was one other bug. I should have mentioned also with the cucumber beetles. I mean, they're bad because they eat the young leaves. Once the cucumber plants and other plants, potatoes, all get bigger, they don't really eat enough of anything to make a difference.
Right,
but
they're hardy enough.
They carry a bacteria that's deadly to cucumbers. And so they can transmit that bacteria. And that's really the worst thing about them. And that's why you really have to try to get rid of them. And yes, and so that reminds me of squash bugs. Those are those gray things that if you squash them, they smell just awful. The recommendation is to look under the leaves of your squashes and see if you see the eggs.
They look like little orange eggs, right?
They do. Little orangish brown eggs laid together in a cluster. Now, ladybugs will, if you have ladybugs, they'll go on and eat those eggs and get rid of them. But it said you can take your thumb and squash the egg by rubbing it back and forth to try to prevent them. And the squash bugs carry a disease also.
So how do we get rid of the cucumber beetle? Is it possible?
Well, they suggested, using pesticides, and you could use organic pesticides, which might work really well. And but then I always worry. I always worry about the bees.
Yeah.
If you're putting something on for a pesticide, you should do it in the evening after the bees have gone to bed, because most of the power of that pesticide goes rather quickly. It doesn't last very long.
Right.
And so if you put it on at night, it does less damage. If you put it in the morning when the bees are coming around to pollinate, you might end up killing some of your
because the bees can bring it back to the hive. So.
And the bees could take it back to the hive. I'm not an expert on that, but they will take it back to the hive.
Garden fork is
with
about being
certain
experts.
kinds of pesticides. Yeah.
So let's talk, you want to talk about tomatoes real quick?
Pardon?
You want to talk about tomatoes real quick?
Sure. I'd love to.
My tomatoes aren't doing very well, but the Juliettes that you got me, which are these are the Juliettes here, are great.
Right.
And the rest of them are just kind of puttering along. They're not doing very well.
Well, mine, they were hit with the horn tobacco worm,
Yep.
which seems to go for the most tender leaves toward the top. And then I have some blight killing some of the leaves, the fungus at the bottom I'm very worried about. But in Jane's front garden, it's kind of on the hilltop there, and the wind comes across the pond on the other side of the street. So it gets a lot of air circulation, and I think that has helped tremendously because those tomato plants are just growing
I
fabulously.
saw them up there. They look like giant. They look like giant weeds.
And they're loaded. We took some pictures of the tomatoes too. We'll show you. They're loaded with all kinds
Oh, I
of.
didn't bring it.
Oh, you didn't? Okay.
Darn.
Well, you could borrow it and bring it back,
They're on the camera.
or
You can
whatever.
borrow
You could.
this.
I
do
could
it.
bring the thumb drive back. Yeah.
Yeah.
'Cause this has all Priscilla's pictures.
I
This one with the.
love this. Look like all the gardeners are going high tech here for us.
I know, aren't we? So those plants are absolutely loaded with huge tomatoes, and Jane picked a Nona's prize that was ripe that weighed over a pound,
Oh, cool.
and
Wow, we're looking at pictures of everyone in the camera. That's nice.
I hope you
Oh,
can
neat
put
looking.
some on your
Here's the cluster. Priscilla.
But we spent 5 hours there yesterday
Nice.
staking. They've grown over the tops of the tomato
Oh, there's
cages,
the worm.
and we had to.
There you go. There's the
That's
tomato
a good
hornworm in the
picture,
picture.
yes.
So
Right.
we'll post a couple
We
pictures on the
should
They're all
side.
on there,
that.
so
Mm-hmm.
that's probably it.
So basically, location is important because, like,
And
I'm in a fishbowl.
air
I'm in the woods,
circulation.
and our house was carved out of the wood, so I have some grass, but I'm surrounded by pine trees.
Right.
So I don't get that air circulation, and also it stays cooler and shaded in my yard. And I
And
like
the
them wearing their reading
tomatoes
glasses.
like the like the hot, they like the hot sunny weather.
Yeah.
So
You have to take some trees down.
yeah,
I can do that. Did I tell you guys about my boat I built?
no,
I built a boat out of a sheet of plywood.
a rowboat or
Yeah, a little paddle boat.
oh,
There's
maybe-
a couple of websites online where there are people obsessed about making a boat out of, well, not obsessed is the right word, but they're really into making boats out of one sheet of plywood or 1.5 sheets or 2 sheets of plywood.
Is this a one-person boat or?
It's a 2-person. The camera operator and I were both in the boat. So,
oh, good.
and it has, and I just made it. I made a video about it. We'll post it on the site
Oh,
this
we'll
week.
be looking forward to that. For
And it's
sure.
great. It's like, it's a perfect like parent-kid project because you don't need too many tools to make it.
Right.
Right.
The biggest secret is you have to caulk everything,
Sure.
and I didn't quite caulk everything, so there was a
someone
little
was
leak.
bailing.
But it works, and
Good.
it was like kind of like paddling a wobbly canoe. But I mean, on my friend's pond is like all of 5 feet deep, and you got a life preserver on. So,
Right.
but it's a perfect. I think this whole boat building out of plywood is really cool,
Wow.
and like
That's
for
good.
your
We'll
for
be
your
looking
kids.
forward to reading that. Oh, I was going to say one other thing, just to come back to the bugs business. We grow a kind of Italian heirloom Italian green bean. It's aroma type that's flat instead of round, long and flat. Someone gave us the seeds many years ago. They were brought over by this person's parents many years ago from Italy. And I have never seen these seeds for sale in any seed catalog, and I get a lot of them. Well, Japanese beetles can be a big problem on beans.
Yep.
They will not touch these bean leaves.
Huh.
There's something in the leaves they don't like, and they never eat the leaves. Isn't that interesting?
That is cool. Maybe
So-
someone else listening has heard of these, or maybe they
right,
haven't.
finding a variety of plant that bugs don't like can be really helpful. So now we've stopped growing any other kind of bean because we just grow these up 12-foot high poles, and they get to the top and start coming back down
Priscilla
again.
bought me a lazy wife's bean, and I planted them on either side.
Oh, that's right, our
and
experiment
The Japanese beetles took 'em,
devoured
ate
it.
'em up.
So they
Oh,
wiped
and
out the
not
other ones,
Italian
not the rest.
Completely
heirloom.
wiped out.
Are these
the-
them right here on the table?
Yes, yes. And
Everyone, we're going to
you should
sample the beans.
Take some home with you. Well, these are not for sale because they're a day old.
Oh.
But these the most incredible
I wasn't going to buy them. I was
beans.
going to eat them.
Everybody. Well, I meant that it won't be as fresh as if it were just picked. That's all I'm trying to say. This one.
Yum.
And then, if you let the beans get big toward the end of the season, which we do, then we dry them and save the seeds for the coming year.
Nice.
Some of them. I've given quite a few seeds away, and we also shell them out and make baked beans on the wood stove with them, and they're absolutely delicious.
I love it. I have rattlesnake beans, and they have purple stripes in them.
Right.
And even when they get big and knobby, they're still quite good.
Well, these are the same way.
Yeah, this is very similar.
Good. Right.
They don't get that woody taste.
They don't. They stay really, really delicious. So I wanted to mention that.
Cool.
Watching for plants. I've been watching the tomato plants to see if there's a kind that the hornworm doesn't like, but
we haven't found that yet.
No, I haven't found that yet, but you never know. And down the road, hopefully we can do this little fun project where we'll get our different kinds of tomatoes out and cut them in pieces, and then we'll have some test people coming in and blindfold them and let them try the different kinds and see what the vote is for the very best tasting tomato.
And we'll have to have a facilitator.
Plan for next year.
Who knows all the secrets.
Yeah, I will.
Cool.
I've talked to people who got tomato plants from me this year, and everybody is reporting really good success with their plants.
You're the only one I go to for tomatoes, so.
Yeah.
All right.
They're good.
Well, thanks so much.
Okay.
Are you on the internet or anything where people can find you, or your website? Or
That comes back to Jane again. She put Fern Hill Farm on Facebook.
Oh, okay.
And then my grandson, Lucas, is 9, and Jane ran around and took a whole bunch of pictures and put them on Facebook. And then every day we try to update it to say what we have in the farm stand in that day. For instance,
so if you search for Fern Hill Farm.
Yes, just Fern Hill Farm on Facebook, and you'll find us with pictures and a list of what we have.
So Jane's the director of technology for Fern Hill Farm?
Yes, she's definitely the director of technology.
Cool.
And now the grapes are starting to come in.
Those are tart. Those are like eating lemons almost.
But they're seedless. I
Yeah.
love seedless grapes. So
Cool.
I think that's Himrod, right?
All right, so we'll post some of these pictures that Jane put on the drive for us.
We probably should post a picture of your cucumber, Eric. It is over 2 feet long. And it's beautiful. I mean, it is. It looks like a weapon, but it could be cut up and used. And
we were talking about that there's a tongue pickles.
Yes,
Someone
I
has a recipe for
heard
tongue
there's
pickles?
a very old Vermont recipe called tongue pickles. If you want to know what to do with cucumbers that get too big, and I think everybody goes through this situation, you cut them lengthwise and take the seeds out. And then you can make a pickles with them. And I'm going to get that recipe pretty soon. So we'll probably post
What's
that.
neat about these is they didn't get, like, sometimes cucumbers get too big, they get kind of yellow and bloated.
These
are still nice. Yeah.
I know. We should
I think they're called Jade.
Jade. Well, I'd like to
I'll add
grow
that
some of these
into the
next
show notes.
year.
So.
We do have a late crop of cucumbers. I just started in the hoop house, and they're up and almost ready to be transplanted. And they have white skin, but they're supposed to be very crunchy and good.
I like that.
But I don't know if I can get used to a cucumber with white skin. But anyway, we'll see.
Well, just close our eyes.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Thank you.
Okay.
All right, there you go. Another episode of Garden Fork with Priscilla, our plant and egg expert. She really gets excited about being on the show. So if you guys want to leave some comments or send her an email, you can send it to me, eric@gardenfork.tv, and I'll make sure she gets it. We're also on Facebook. Just search for Garden Fork. On Twitter, we are Garden Fork TV, all one word. Also, our listener, viewer, voicemail comment line, 860-740-6938. All right, make it a great day, everyone. I'll see you later. Garden Fork's theme music is used under license from uniquetracks.com.